Joe Bauman, the president of the Birmingham Bloomfield Chamber of Commerce, joins us again. Joe, welcome to the MegaCast.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for being with us. Since we last spoke, a lot has changed. How are Birmingham and Bloomfield's businesses doing right now?
Well, a lot has changed, but a lot has stayed the same. As you know, the governor extended her executive order yesterday to stay at home until the 28th of May, which means that non-essential businesses have to remain closed. So for many of our members, our retailers, our restaurants, they're still not able to re-engage in a full capacity. So that continues to be a challenge. However, on the brighter side, there are some industries that are now back to work. The real estate community got to go back to work. The manufacturing industry gets to go back on Monday. Home construction is back up and running. So we're starting to see signs of life. But for the most part, in terms of Main Street retail, downtowns, they still remain for the most part closed through the rest of May.
Recently, Brian Calley, former lieutenant governor and the president of the Small Business Association of Michigan, held a Q&A with Bridge Michigan about the survival of small businesses. What are your thoughts on the best way for small businesses in your area and throughout Oakland County to survive as we continue to go forward in this process?
Well, I think that the key is to adapt to the new normal and come up with different sales strategies, coming up really with a different business model. This virus is going to be with us for a long time. And so retail outlets are going to have to rely more on online sales for sure. Curbside pickup, communicating with your customers is going to be critical. Everybody maintains a CRM of their best customers, and just making sure that you let your customers know what's available, what's not, how it's available, how it can be accessed is going to be really important.
In that same article with Bridge Michigan, with the former Lieutenant Governor Brian Calley, the current president of the Small Business Association of Michigan, it was projected that 1 in 7 small businesses in Michigan will survive this, and that the other 6 are going to have some serious issues and possibly close. Joe Bauman, president of Birmingham Bloomfield's Chamber of Commerce, do you believe that is the case in your coverage area?
Well, I certainly hope not. I did see that report. We have been in regular contact with SBAM to talk about these things and also talk about reopening issues. There's no question about it that if companies aren't able to reestablish their relationships with their customer base, they're going to have real problems. We're particularly concerned about the restaurant industry. As you know, restaurants operate on a very thin margin to begin with. And if they're faced with only being able to have 50% capacity maximum, you're cutting their customer base in half. And we also know that those restaurants that serve liquor, the profit is really in the liquor. So if you are reducing customer base by 50%, you're still going to have almost all of your same expense though, because you still have to have a kitchen staff, you still have to have a wait staff, you still have to pay your mortgage and your utilities. So I think restaurants are going to continue to be probably, if not one of the most vulnerable sectors going forward.
Has the ability to have curbside and delivery increasing as this process has gone on been an aid to restaurants especially, but also to other small businesses like retail in Birmingham and Bloomfield?
I think the results have been mixed. I think for soft goods retail, it's not been as successful as for restaurants. And that's why you'll see that in downtown Birmingham, for instance, the majority of the businesses are closed. They're not trying to do something with curbside or out the back door or whatever. They just, their model doesn't work for that. With restaurants, I think they're doing it as much to keep a visible presence in the community and to make sure that their customers don't forget about them. I think restaurants that had a large carryout business to start with prior to the pandemic are doing better than ones, let's say, fine dining, because it's very difficult to try to maintain fine dining quality and price, frankly, when somebody's picking it up in styrofoam and taking it home. So I think restaurants are being as creative as they can be. They've expanded. In some ways, they've limited their menus, but in other ways, they've expanded their stuff. They're doing family meals, which have proven to be successful. Some are selling groceries, which they weren't able to do before. But again, none of that really comes with alcohol sales, and especially for restaurants that are built around fine dining and serving alcohol and having a bar, they're the ones that are kind of being double whammy.
You project as the future for small businesses in Birmingham and Bloomfield as this crisis hopefully starts to wind down?
Well, I think it's no doubt going to be challenging. Businesses are going to have a rough year financially. It's whether they'll be able to adapt to a new business model and whether they'll be able to move forward, knowing what the challenges are. We're hopeful that people have really kind of taken stock of how much they miss their favorite restaurants and their favorite stores. And so we're encouraged by the fact, and the chamber is going to be out in the forefront and leading really a renewed and rejuvenated effort for our Buy Local campaign. I think what you're going to see is that people are going to start supporting their local businesses that are closer to home and wanting to support those that they have an established relationship with. So I think, and people are going to be a little more understanding of costs as well. Restaurants across the board are, they're reporting that when they're doing the curbside delivery and they're doing the carryout, people have been very generous in supporting and tipping the staff because they know that they're struggling. And we think that's going to continue going forward. So we're optimistic that we will be able to rebuild some base for customers, and that the customers will respond to whatever new model is going to have to be adopted.
Education, partnership, and innovation have been critical for businesses throughout this process, and it's something that the chambers of commerce are often very much involved in normal times to help these businesses as they're growing. What has the Birmingham Bloomfield Chamber of Commerce been doing as this pandemic has progressed to provide that extra innovation help and the educational help to these businesses so they can do their best and put their best foot forward to try to survive this time?
So the first thing that we're doing is we're trying to keep them as updated and informed as possible as to all of the county, state, and federal assistance programs that are being offered to small businesses, whether it's PPP loans on the federal side, whether it's tax incentives on the state side, whether it's Oakland County's small business stabilization grant program that just wrapped up phase 2 yesterday. So we want to make sure they're aware of what's available to them so they can take advantage wherever they can. Secondly, while we can't have events in person right now, we have put together a robust calendar of virtual events and webinars based on best practices, based on where do you find PPE, how do you survive in a virtual world, how do you manage your staff remotely. We're really relying on our experts who are members of our chamber to provide these twice weekly webinars and providing as good of updated information as we can. Right now, our members, the small businesses, they want to know if they're missing out on any opportunity for some kind of financial assistance. They want to know what they're supposed to be doing when the time comes to reopen their business, both for their staff and their customers. And they want to know how to be more technologically savvy, understanding that more of the interaction with their customers is going to be virtual and building an online sales platform.
After all this is done, after all this pandemic crisis goes away, and we're months down the road, we're years down the road, how long do you project, do you believe in Birmingham and Bloomfield and beyond, it will take for our small businesses to recover from this?
Well, hey, that's a great question. I think it's going to depend on each individual business. I will say this, everyone is going to have a tough 2018, because we're going to be dealing with this. If you looked at, the governor yesterday released her 6-phase plan to recovery for the state and for business, and we're only in phase 3, and so we're going to continue to have constraints and restrictions as to how we can conduct business, how many people you're allowed to have in your business. So I think for all of 2020, it's going to be a tough year financially. Hopefully by 2021, there'll be effective treatment for the virus and or a vaccine, and that's going to be the game changer, right? Because then it's going to become a manageable disease like so many others that we deal with on a regular basis. But I think our small businesses are resilient, and they're passionate about what they do, and they're going to do everything they can to stay in business. And so it's going to be organizations like the chamber and and government assistance that's going to be the bridge to help them return to some sense of fiscal normalcy in 2021.
Joe Bauman, the president of the Birmingham Bloomfield Chamber of Commerce, with us on the MegaCast. Joe, just a moment before we have to let you go. Anything else you'd like to say to our audience? Anything else we haven't touched on yet in this interview that you'd like to speak on?
Sure. So I know a lot of our small businesses did try to participate in the Oakland County Economic Development Small Business Stabilization Grant Program. The first phase of the program rolled out a couple of weeks ago and has already been funded. It started as a $3 million fund, which was a combination from the MEDC and the county. We just wrapped up phase 2 in terms of the grant cycle, and this time there was $12 million available for small business applications. And so those businesses that did not get funded in phase 1 were automatically put to the top of the list for phase 2. So if you are a small business owner, if you did apply for one of the county grants, know that it's still possible you're going to get a grant, and you should know within a week. So the fact that the county used some of their CARES Act funding for this small business stabilization program was really outstanding, because a lot of small businesses, they need help right now paying their bills until they can get some revenue coming back in the door. So hopefully by the end of next week, there's going to be about 500 additional small businesses in Oakland County that are going to receive direct financial support. So we're very encouraged by that.
Joe Bauman, president of the Birmingham Bloomfield Chamber of Commerce, joining us via Zoom on the MegaCast. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks for having me. Stay safe, stay strong.
You as well. Joe Bauman, the president of the Birmingham Bloomfield Chamber of Commerce, with us on the MegaCast.